folks. Hope you're doing well. This is David and Christy back again with another episode of the Innovative Leader Podcast. Today, we are going to talk about women in leadership. This is, I think, an important topic. There's a lot of value to talking about this, and the push within HR and within organizations to put women in more leadership roles. I was Fortune 5. The Fortune 500 has about 6% of the companies in the Fortune 500 have women CEOs, which I think really is a shame. There's a lot of value to having women in those roles. There's a lot of value in having women in leadership, and I think it's been a struggle, obviously, for centuries, to recognize the value of women. We see that discrepancy in pay gaps. We see it again in women who are in CEO roles. There's all kinds of issues for that, but there is great value, especially in terms of the leadership style that is being the culture is transitioning to from that 2 or 3.0 leadership style to a more 4.0 leadership style. There's so much value that women bring in moving in that direction. The qualities of women really lend itself to that kind of leadership, and I hope that we see that in our culture sooner rather than later. So we're going to talk about the value of women, the value of women in leadership today, and so we'll talk about that with a woman. So it's just not a male conversation. Which I think brings great value to that. Too many men talk about women in leadership far too often, so it's good we can talk about that. Christy, so when we think about that, what's your thoughts and your perspective on women and roles of leadership?
So it's interesting because for myself as a female leader, a lot of times I have maybe minimized this conversation a little bit because sometimes I find it a little bit annoying. And I feel that it's relegating to even have the conversation because it makes it a tug of war, as if there's this competition. And so I think a lot of times I'm like, I'm not going to show up as a female. I'm showing up as a leader. I'm showing up as a human being. So I'm not here because I'm female or whatever. I'm here because I'm a leader and because I have something to share. So typically that's more how I view myself. But the reality is there is this situation with the way that women show up. I was on a webinar the other day and it was with Seth Godin. He was doing a video clip of the Kodak. It was I don't know if it was a movie. I think it was in a movie where, or a commercial where they were showcasing a guy who was trying to sell movie cameras to Kodak. And the table was all white suit men. And then back in the corner is the secretary taking notes, the female secretary taking notes, and the rest were men. And he's talking about, just shifting from Kodak to move from pictures into this video technology or whatever. But what was interesting is there is this issue of gender equality. And when you look at it, there isn't gender equality. And also, I think another thing that can be fascinating is sometimes we can even ask a question like, how do women lead better than men? How do men lead better than women? That in and of itself is a gender biased question, implying that one leads better than the other. And kind of a fun statistic. So, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. I did the emotional intelligence certification with MHS, and that set of emotional intelligence assessments. So what's fun is they actually have looked at the emotional intelligence results of people who have taken that, the male results versus female results. And what is really cool is now they did give the 5 areas men slightly exceed women, and the 5 areas that women slightly exceed men. And I'll share those in a second. But what's really important before I share that is that there is only 2 statistical points of difference that these showed slightly higher for women or slightly higher for men, 2 points. And statistically, you need at least 10 points of consistent differentiation in order to say that women are better at this, or men are better at this, or this demographic is better at this. So you'd need at least 10 points of difference in order to make a claim that there is a significant margin of difference. So essentially that's saying there is no difference between men and women, that some men would have as much empathy as some women. So some women have it, some women don't. Some men have it, some men don't. So it's saying statistically there's not that, but here's just for the point of, this is interesting, I think, where men exceeded by 2 points, just a little bit more, was in the 5 areas of problem solving, assertiveness, self-regard, which self-regard is how you view yourself, your confidence, independence, and stress tolerance, which is how men exceeded a little bit more. And then for women, it was empathy, emotional expression, so the ability to express your emotions, social responsibility, kind of that external care and concern, emotional self-awareness, our emotions of our own feelings, so being aware of them and expressing them are 2 different things. And then the 5th one was interpersonal relationships. So women's tend to be kind of in this quadrant of interpersonal skills, versus men's, of course, are more in this quadrant of getting things done, problem solving, assertiveness, independence, stress tolerance, pushing through things. But again, remember the difference wasn't that great. So it says some men have it, some don't, some women have it, some don't. But I just think it's an interesting thing that there's more cultural stereotypes that affirm men to do certain things and affirm women to do certain things. So what is happening in our culture that we actually culturally bias and reward different genders for acting in a certain way that further empowers their emotional intelligence to do that because they're affirmed to do it, is an interesting thing. So that's lots of thoughts. I don't even know that I answer your question because maybe I veered off a little bit, but it's just a fascinating topic that we do need to look at. And there is a value for women in leadership. There is an opportunity because women really haven't been leading to their full capability because they haven't, in my opinion, had a seat at the table. And that creates a lopsided teeter-totter.
No, I agree. I find it interesting. I was as you were talking, I went back to a Freakonomics radio episode. They talked about something called the glass cliff, and it was about women in leadership. And one of the things they noted was that when if a company was safe and doing well, this goes back to your stereotypes, that it was like 50-50 whether they would choose the man or the woman to make a CEO, make them the CEO. If the company was in trouble, then they almost always chose the man.
Interesting.
And it was, the thought process of men are rugged and tough, and they can handle criticism, and they can go in and cut things and, be decisive. But it's a false statement. But that's just these two professors ran a study, and that's essentially what they found. So yeah, the stereotypes unfortunately are there, but we've got to move past that, because I mean, first of all, statistically, there are more women than men in America. I mean, that's something that we need to work through. But really, in a 4.0 leadership world, the values that women bring to that, the experiences that they have, are much more conducive to leading in that 4.0 era, and even helping transition into a 4.0 era. They're incredibly smart women, incredibly decisive women, incredibly strong communicators. There should not be this bias toward men in any way. So today we're going to talk about three of those values, and the first is that approach to leadership through teamwork. Women tend to be more team oriented. They tend to communicate that. They tend to bring ideas together. And so when we think about teamwork, that's so important in 4.0 leadership, to be able to lead a team, to bring them together, and to build that teamwork concept. And so I think that's an incredible value that women bring. This is not the Lone Ranger, the man who goes out and does things on his own. This is someone who has a great concept of bringing people together, creating this almost family environment, and allowing people to lead. When you think about that, Christy, what do you think about that with teamwork and
almost? Yeah, I think it's great. And I think with all of these things, with everybody listening, as we're talking about this, it doesn't matter what gender you are, we all have this same opportunity, because what we're talking about is how women have a little bit more of a natural skill because of the things that they've been doing to bring this to the leadership table. And what we're really saying is the leadership table is changing, and that in our 2.0 era, the skills of a man that was a power and authority, command control, more of a dictating, directing platform was more of the modality in a 2.0 leadership world. And so it was a nice match. But as we move into our 4.0 world, and our society is really changing what is being asked for from leaders. And so as leaders struggle to go, how in the world should we be leading? We can actually look to some of the attributes that have been more classically a female attribute, or sometimes I like to say a female energy attribute, which whether you're male or female, we can have male, female energy regardless of our sex. So agree. I think that as far as building team, when we think about women or we think about building team, what's important is to have that group voice, and that we are not stuck in ego. We're not stuck in being right. We're not stuck in telling, and we're not stuck in this way that we feel like we need to be the power and authority. In contrast, in order to build team, I respect the team not as a minion or a lesser than. Think about a mother in the household. Often a mother in a household is collaborating with her children. Usually women don't, why are you laughing?
No, sometimes it's collaboration. Sometimes it's very authoritative.
True. Very true. But I think typically there'll be more the approach. I think they desire to collaborate. And of course, these are somewhat stereotypes, but yeah, we're playing to the essence of it. Is there's a desire to collaborate, or not collaborate, but a desire to kind of find the common interest. Like, hey, do you guys have ideas for dinner tonight? Hey, we've got an open night. Would you like to go swimming, go to the park? What would be fun? Versus they don't go, well, we have a free night. We're going to the park tonight because we haven't been there in a long time. Most women do not sound like that. Right. In general, they are crowdsourcing the common desire because they desire to nurture. They desire to know what other people think, what other people want. They want them to be happy. So they're kind of looking for this common platform, and they're bringing the voices forward in this crowdsourcing kind of a way to find the win-win, to find the collective wisdom, which is really what we're looking for in 4.0 leadership. It's the followership concept of followers have as much wisdom. As a leader, my job is just to clear the path. My job is not to tell. And my job is to extract from the team, what do we see? What's the different perspectives? And when we kind of think about that female energy or that female skill set, they're kind of used to doing that because of the different things that they've done. They tend to not step into that power and authority. Now, some women can really work on building that confidence and that skill set, certainly, because it's still important. However, we tend to be more collective. So I can see how that would really help to build team in a 4.0 world.
Yeah, so all those things you were talking about, the word that kind of flashed into my mind was listening. Women tend to listen better than men. My wife will tell you that. And so they listen, they hear everything, they remember everything, and so they're able to be more integrative and bring consensus in that regard. Women also, as you said, they tend not to be authoritative, not authoritative. They tend not to be command and control.
Right.
That's a better term to use. And I also think, I was this is just kind of way out there maybe, but, like my dad, who's 82 now, 81 now, his mom did all the housework. She did everything. He went out, worked, earned the money, came home, sat down, the food was cooked, the laundry was done, the house was cleaned, all that. That's the house that my dad grew up in. Which and my mom did all those same things, and she worked a full-time job. And so you have this generation, which was very 2.0. You do this, and I'll tell you what to do, and you do it kind of mindset. But I think about the value of my mom. My mom worked hard. She did all of the things that my grandmother would do while working a full-time job. And now that she's passed, my dad's trying to figure out how to handle money and all that kind of stuff. And so there's just so much that they could have done as a team.
Right.
I think about that. It's so much they could have done as a team, and I'm not putting my parents down in any way.
Right.
Had my dad been willing to listen to my mom. And one of the things that I learned out of that is early on, my mom taught me how to cook. She taught me about balancing the checkbook. She taught me about all these things. And my dad taught me about hard work, and not that my mom didn't work hard, but fixing things. And so it functioned for me very well. I got kind of the best of both worlds, I feel like. But the value of having someone, the value of listening and working together as a team, just even in parenting, is so important. And women bring so much to the table with that because of their ability to be. My mom was always intuitive. Like she would just come home one day and she said, "Is there anything you need to tell me?" And not knowing that I had done something or not had done something, but just intuitive in that way. There's so many values that bring together people who work together and understand each other and function well together. And I think that teamwork, I think that the values that women have in that are huge, and we don't see it enough. We don't listen. That men don't listen enough. We don't listen enough to each other. We're trying to figure out what to say next. And so I think that teamwork piece is incredibly huge.
I love your summary as listening, and also your little tag onto that and remembering, listening and remembering. So it's not just hearing, but it's remembering so you can do something with that.
Right.
And then I think you actually kind of dovetail to our third point, but let's make that our second point.
Okay.
Is the ability to manage and connect multiple things at the same time. And you're right, like you integrated into teamwork, but like you mentioned with your mom, being intuitive, being able to juggle multiple things at the same time, that there's this way that women are able to manage and connect these different things. I love Mark Gungor is a couples pastor and motivator, speaker, and he has you can Google it. It's called The Tale of Two Brains, and it's hilarious. He's very funny, but he talks about how men kind of think in boxes and how women's brains are everything is connected to everything, kind of a little bit more like spaghetti. And I think that's a benefit in 4.0. Because when we think about this 4.0 world, we talk about diversification and how you can't just be linear and in a certain niche, that you would actually be blindsided if you did that. And that we have to be aware of technology, things that are trending, and leadership, things that are trending, and innovations that are trending, that we have to pay attention and diversify ourselves to these multiple things going on. So I think there's a way that women get less overwhelmed by that because their brain naturally is wired to think about these different things going on. And then to your point about the intuition, which is really good, they're not hyper analyzing every little piece along the way. They're just kind of using their gut to be like, well, hold on, something feels off right here. What's off right here? And that intuitive nature is kind of their ability to navigate the big picture and not have to dissect everything. Sometimes men, because they are wired a little bit more to think in that box, they're like looking and being, okay, is there a problem in this box? Is there something to solve in this box? No? Okay, next box. Women don't do that. They're just kind of in this circuit of flow, and then they stop when there's a problem. But I think that really supports that point of their ability to manage and connect multiple things. What are your thoughts about how women and men might differ a little bit there, and how that supports the 4.0 leadership for?
I would agree with that. I mean, my mom saw things that my dad never saw. And she was able to put two and two together and realize there were problems, there were issues. And my dad just didn't have a clue. And so I think when you see that ability to connect and integrate, to hear it, to kind of put it back in your brain, and then at some point it just pops back up just instinctively, and you kind of know this is not right. This something is going on here. I think that's especially huge in 4.0 world, because there's just too much to analyze. I mean, you could pull data 50 ways from Sunday, and you could overanalyze this thing to death. But if you have heard and you have remembered, and you're instinctive, and you start seeing things that happen, your brain can, when it can connect all of that, you know something is up. And all it does for me, I think I'm blessed, because maybe I got that from my mom. Something is up, and now your own heightened awareness, you're heightened in your awareness, and then it happens, and it just adds to your intelligence, or your understanding of things. But that's huge, because again, there's so much to analyze. You're never going to be able to analyze it all, and you've got to be able to listen and understand and hear, and instinctively make assessments that can shift and move and tweak your organization to be in a better spot than it is.
Agree.
Said a lot of words. I don't know that.
No, that's really, it's fantastic. I love it. I think keywords in there is being instinctive. To connect the dots is really good. It allows you to be dynamic, and in the flow is really important. And to your point, as a man, it is not that, oh, we need women in leadership because men can't do this. That is not the message, and that is not the point. We are not elevating women to de-elevate men. That's not the point. I think that sometimes we get confused in these things, that in order to raise one means pushing one down. And that's not the point. Men are very valuable. Every human being has a skill set and a perspective that is very important. And to your point, they're just a skill set that perhaps our society or our season in this era of time has been more rewarded. So when you give someone a boys a tool to play with and women a kitchen to play with, are we not slightly conditioning the bias of what you should be doing? But men, to your point, and a blessing from your mother, that you've learned these skill sets, that you can also be instinctive and that you also are intuitive. And I know that you're intuitive. I know that you personally are very in touch with paying attention to how you're thinking and feeling and what might be coming up, and that you're not, while you're incredibly analytical as well, you also are very intentional to tap that heart side of yourself. And so it's a beautiful example of how men and women need these skills interchangeably, and that it's not, oh, well, let's get women in leadership because men aren't instinctual. That's not true at all. If we go back to hunters and gatherers and whatever, like there's a lot of instinct in men as well. So it's not minimizing, it's saying this skill set really matters for 4.0. And I love the way that you said that.
Yeah, it does. And, you know, I think it's something that you have to learn. And I think it can be learned. I don't think that it is something that men, stereotypical men, can't learn. I think if you become aware of your surroundings, if you take note of those things, if we listen like we should, instead of just trying to listen to talk, then we can do those things, and it can help you integrate multiple things at once, so that you can actually create and think out of the box. You can bring multiple disciplines in to think and create out of the box and come up with creative solutions. So it's not just necessarily tied to you know, how you lead an organ. Well, I guess it is. That's part of leadership. But it's how you make decisions. If we can gather that, or if we can strengthen that aspect of us, of men, then I think it creates a great value for the organization regardless.
Well, and to that point, I think when we look at I don't have the stats at my fingertips, but when we look at how effective our leaders being, we know that men predominate leadership, but we also know that leadership in general is statistically rated as not very effective. And so there's an opportunity to just increase our effectiveness. To your point, it's just a skill set to learn. Let's grab that last skill real quick. The last one is really the ability to develop. And women tend, again, maybe because of their nurturing nature, because of their tendency to minimize ego a little bit. Not that women can't be egotistical, they absolutely can. And not that they don't want to be right or whatever, they can do that too. But there's more of this ability to develop mentoring, a heart of compassion, seeing the gap. Again, you think back to that mothering instinct of a child, where a child is, and then of course, not all mothers do this well even, right? We have really bad moms out there too, whatever. And I think every mom will always hang herself up and feel like she could have done a better job and stress out about that. But the reality is I think that women tend to look at where is somebody, and then where is their potential, and then nurturing that potential. So I think that women tend to see the human heart a little bit more rather than the human doing. I think on the masculine energy side of things, we tend to zone in on goals and production and productivity a little bit more, which definitely has its place. But on that female energy side of things is really this heart, seeing that human being instead of the human doing.
Yeah, and I think that's huge, especially in the last year. We've seen the need for that with COVID and everything that's going on. We need those people who are compassionate, who are concerned, who understand they need to get things done, but still have that compassion. And women tend to have that ability more than men, because we're just kind of matter of fact. And that's just, I don't know if that's how we're wired. And I think in some cases it's how we're wired, but I think in other cases we've been socialized to that as well. So it's a combination of that. But yeah, we need that compassion. We need the understanding. Women tend to be better. Women tend to teach. They have there's a lot of teaching aspects of that. They were taught by their mothers in so many ways. And so I think we need to, I think that's value that they bring more so than men, because men tend not to be a great mentors. So I've
Well,
had
and
a
I do
few, and I
think
wonder.
your point about socialization. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So your point about socialization, I do think there's a lot of socialization that has subconsciously been wired in there, in that how we need to show up in this world. And
Right.
do we give men more permission to be the knower and the expert, versus as a woman, you have been given more permission to be the learner,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps, which if you have more permission to be the learner, you also tend to teach more because you're learning. So you're teaching, you're a little softer, versus if you are rewarded for knowing, that's difficult. Now you have to struggle with when you don't know because you feel
Right.
incompetent and inadequate. Or have men been rewarded for being assertive and for saying, okay, this is how it is? And like you said, in the middle of a crisis. Now, I have noticed, I feel like sometimes men are more emotionally neutral, which can be very beneficial, versus women can be more emotionally, I want to say, vulnerable, or, uh, hard on their sleeve. And not that
Right.
men don't also um, have that ability, but sometimes I think it's been misused a little bit, not misused, but women haven't known how to handle that. So then you're sitting at I don't know, if you're sitting at an executive table and all of a sudden a woman breaks down crying because we have to let so-and-so go, would that be a problem? Yeah, I think that's a problem, because you're not able to essentially manage yourself in
Right.
order to navigate a challenging situation. And so I think we all have these opportunities. To me, it goes back to emotional intelligence. And we all have the opportunity in emotional intelligence, whatever our strength is and whatever our deficit is to grow that emotional intelligence so that we can lead better, whether you're male or female,
Right.
type of a thing. But anyway, sorry, I rambled a little bit
No,
there, but
that's
just
okay.
this
That's great.
development opportunity, I agree with. Go ahead.
No, I think that's great. I think men have been socialized not to be emotional. I
Right.
think that has I think that has changed over the last couple of decades. But I think in general, we were socialized not to be emotional. I got my emotions from my mom. I can be fairly emotional, but that's just kind of how we were raised.
Right.
So, listen, I know we've got to run.
Yeah.
You have a meeting to run to. So,
Yeah.
thanks so much for listening. We would love to hear how you think, what the values that you think women bring to the table, and the energy that they bring. And again, we're not trying to bash men. This is not a gender bashing issue episode. This is really just some of the things that are more uh, that women tend to have that men may not, and the value that they bring to leadership, the value they bring to 4.0 leadership, and some things that we as men can learn and learn how to do better. So we look
Yeah.
forward to hearing your comments, and thanks for listening. And so, Christy, I wish you well. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and share with us your ideas and thoughts. We love to hear them.
Awesome. All right. Take care.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.